What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and it's Tuesday, which means it's time to talk through my must-add waiver wire targets for Week 11 of the fantasy football season. These guys are all under 50% owned in ESPN leagues. We're going to talk through over 20 players, so we cover all leagues of all shapes and sizes and whatever need you might have for your team. Now, we're not going to waste any time. Again, a lot of players to get into. Subscribe if you're new. It's that time of the year. Subscribes go a long way. Leave a like. That goes a long way if you enjoy. Now, our first players we'll talk about here are my priority ads. These are guys that I would put a bid of like 5% plus, 10% plus. These are not guys you're going to pick up Wednesday morning after waivers roll through. And I will say under 50% owned, but I stretched it out a little bit because there's some very clear waiver wire ads like Jauan Jennings, where he might, in like an 8-team, 10-team league, he might not be picked up yet. He absolutely should. But the more realistic one is Ricky Pearsall here. I want these 49ers receivers, all right? Jauan Jennings in this game this past week had 11 targets. He is it sounds crazy to say, he is almost there's no such thing as handcuffs for wide receivers, but Jennings is about as close as it gets to a handcuff. He was literally in the Ayuk role, 11 targets, 7 catches, 93 yards, big boy stat line, didn't even score a touchdown, still gave you 16.3 fantasy points. He has been really good when called upon. Of course, he had his famous, 46.5 point game, but he should be good to go. That's somebody where if you want to unload the clip, if he's somehow on waivers, go ahead. He's literally the wide receiver 31 right now, despite missing a couple games, not being the starter early on. And then we have Ricky Pearsall, who I'm very impressed with. Of course, had the gunshot incident, comes back, kind of a slow start, but over his first 3 games, he's averaged 5 targets per game. That's great. In this past week, he had 6 targets, 4 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. And the reason why we love these rookie wide receivers so much is because of the upside they provide, especially a guy like Ricky Pearsall. These guys that, they're not going to start out strong. They're going to, in Ricky's happenstance, there was something going on there, but also he would have been buried on this depth chart behind Jennings, Ayuk, Debo, but the Ayuk injury has now sort of thrusted him in the mix here, and he has a chance, as Jack Miller pointed out here. Of course, this is 2018 to 2020, but we see this every single year. Last year, you saw it with Jaden Reed, and you saw it with Zay Flowers down the stretch, and you see it with all these guys where these rookie wide receivers really come on down the stretch. Think of what Rashee Rice did last year. Think of what Amon-Ra St. Brown did as a rookie. If somebody was going to come out of nowhere and be that guy, I love the shout of Ricky Pearsall. This is the rookie receiver report in terms of how he's been doing. He's about like 71% of the routes here, which you'd love to be more, but he is on the Niners where they're going to score points, which was kind of like the beauty of Rashee Rice last year, is that he was operating at like 70% plus, 80% plus, but being on the Chiefs, that was enough. I'm hoping we can get some more of the same for Ricky. Maybe he can kind of earn more of these routes, but I will say don't expect like fireworks. Like for now, he's a flex with the upside to be more as he progresses and as he earns more touches. This offense is always going to be a little bit frustrating where they're going to score points, but they have like 4 playmakers at all times. And you added McCaffrey, so that's going to be like 5. But everything across the board in terms of his rookie profile here, 17.6% targets per out run, 1.5 plus yards per out run, improved his PFF grade this last week by a good bit. He is a really, really nice bet to make that leap rest of the season. And he's also kind of incrementally getting better, where his first game he was at 0.68 yards per out run, then 1.58, and then 2.43 this last week. So he's kind of getting better as he goes here. Would love that route percentage to get from 70% to 80% plus, but we'll see. For now, he's a flex with massive upside. Then we have the running back, Audric Estime, Jersey boy. Always got to shout that out. He's interesting. He was a fun prospect where I really liked him coming out of Notre Dame. He's a very young prospect, super productive in his final year at Notre Dame last year. He was their offense. Now, didn't really catch passes. He's more of your bruiser back. And then he also, I would say he flunked the combine. Now, he flunked the 40-yard dash because the crazy part is that he's 5'11", 220-pound bruiser with a 38.5-inch vertical. That is nuts. This dude can dunk, but he looks like, your power back. Now, he runs over a 4.7 40, but he's been tracked on GPS in college as being fine in terms of his speed, and he also had a fine breakaway run rate from my kind of like research, I guess you could call it. He reminds me a lot of kind of like a, I don't know if James Conner's the right word because James Conner can catch passes, but just a fine between the tackles grinder. Now, his usage in this game, he leapfrogs Javonte Williams, he leapfrogs Jaleel McLaughlin. Adam Levitan points out here, he gets 26 snaps, which is more than McLaughlin and Javonte had combined here. 7 routes to Javante's 8, McLaughlin's 3. So, of course, like the routes and the pass catching is not really going to be there, but he had 14 opportunities to Javante's 3, McLaughlin's 2. So, he was given the lion's share of the opportunities. He had 14 carries, 53 rushing yards, just 3.8 yards per carry, but the Chiefs' defense is really good, who he just played. So, he should definitely be trending in the right direction as the lead back moving forward. Now, I am looking at just kind of like what his schedule is upcoming here because I am curious. They just played the Chiefs. Do we get something a little bit nicer? The Atlanta Falcons. All right, I'd call that kind of like neutral. They've been a pretty good defense. But in a world right now where the waiver wire is pretty dry, Audric Estimate to me is a priority guy. I wouldn't go nuts, right? He's not somebody you grab and you throw him in your RB1 spot, like a premium handcuff or anything. But he's probably like a high-end RB3 until further notice, which I think is probably valuable to a lot of people right now. Our next player we'll talk about as a priority ad. This is another one I made an exception for. 61.5% owned, so he's probably not on rosters in your league, but we had a Najee injury. Shout out to Jeff Mueller over on 4for4. Now, Najee leaves with he's calling it right knee, ankle issue. He was in noticeable pain, initially being able to bear weight, possible high ankle mechanism, which isn't great. Now, here's the thing. He came back in, but we've seen this twice this year. Mixon did that when he had his high ankle sprain early in the year, and then he misses like 4 weeks. He came back in that game. I think Zach Moss might have done something similar, but a lot of these guys, before their ankle swells up, they come back in the game, they're ineffective, and then we see them, not play for, 2, 3, 4 weeks. That could be the case here with Najee Harris. I would grab Jaylen Warren as a precautionary measure. He was also more efficient than Najee Harris in this game and is the pass-catching back in what's actually like a good offense right now. So if Najee actually does go down, Jaylen Warren does have a path to like league winner here down the stretch. So that is exciting, but again, he's not going to be on waivers. If he is, big boy bid. Like we're talking 50% plus. Now, as always, if you're curious of like how much you should be bidding on these players, I have that all in the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. I'll have a link down below in the description and the comment section down below. Click it. It'll take you to patreon.com/Ron Stewart, and you can use my fab guide where I have all of these players listed, ranked, how much fab I'm bidding on them, and then also my drop list at the end of players that I give you the permission to drop. Now we have Tyjae Spears here. This one's interesting. He's been hurt for a while. He's available in like 55% of leagues. He definitely needs to be rostered. There's a little bit, like I wouldn't call it a backfield takeover. It went from Tony Pollard as this like bell cow. He got 31 touches in week 9. He comes out here in week 10, just 13 touches to Tyjae Spears, 10 touches. It's now like an even split where it went from 85% of the snaps to Pollard to 53% as like almost a clean 50-50 break between the two of them. For me, he's like a low-end RB3. That's like tough. You have to be really down bad to start Tyjae Spears right now, but if Pollard was to ever go down, Spears would be a very easy RB2, and this offense is kind of like, it's not the best right now, but it doesn't look as awful as you would think with like Levis and Mason Rudolph and everything that they've had at quarterback. Next up, we'll talk as another priority ad, Gus Edwards, available in 80% of leagues. That's actually kind of shocking. Now, he was really bad early in the year, but he was coming off of some major surgery. Then he's ineffective. Then he gets ruled out with like an ankle or a knee or something. And then he comes back in this week. And, it's only 10 rushes, but he was more effective than Dobbins here. 10 carries, 5.5 per carry, despite only a long of 11. So just like big chunk games, which I imagine like, Harbaugh's going to love. This was his first game back, so just 25% of the snaps for Gus Edwards. But if he's going to rip off 5.5 yards per carry, that's going to ramp up as much as like Dobbins owners isn't going to like that. Dobbins has the receiving game on lock, but if Gus Edwards becomes the primary between the tackles grinder and the primary goal line back on this offense, as it's kind of like really humming here with Herbert, that's somebody you can put in your lineup as like an RB3. And then if Dobbins, someone who doesn't have the best bill of health, if he was to ever go down, Gus Edwards all of a sudden is like a must start every week. So somebody that definitely needs to be picked up. I will add to the priority ads here as well. Give me Cam Akers. Now, this one's really more precautionary. He has, leapfrog Ty Chandler in recent weeks as the main handcuff. But we do have Aaron Jones with a rib injury. Now, of course, it's like a rib injury. It isn't really something that's going to keep him out. But I would do it, these running backs, they only have like such a big health meter. you can only take so many bumps and bruises. Maybe, he has the outlet of like re-injuring this rib or doing something else. So Cam Akers, it's not like you can start him this week, but I'm trying to put this the correct way of like handcuff tiers of like, because I have gotten that question a ton of like, how would you order the handcuffs? And it's kind of hard because there is on one hand like, okay, the handcuffs where the starter was to go down, this is the ranking of how good those handcuffs would be. But there's also on the other hand, how likely is that starter to go down? And I would say Aaron Jones is probably one of the more likely ones to go down. Someone like he's popped up on the injury report a ton this year. You kind of have to weigh that as well, like what's the percent chance that Aaron Jones goes down and Cam Akers comes in versus the percent chance that like Bijan Robinson goes down and Tyler Algier comes in? Algier would be better than Akers, but is Aaron Jones like double as likely to go down as Bijan at this point? Probably. So it's like it's interesting math to do in your head there when it comes down to these handcuff rankings. Now, our last player in the priority ad, somebody that we've been putting out there in the Fab Guides on Patreon, on these videos a ton. Make sure you go grab him. Not Alec Pierce, but Adonai Mitchell. Now, we don't have, I will double check right now just to make sure that I don't get killed. I don't think we have any news on Pittman for this week just yet. But he's had this back injury all year. They were hesitant to put him on IR, but I think that there's a very good chance that he doesn't play again this week. Michael Pittman making AD Mitchell someone you can flex, and then also has the rookie wide receiver upside we talked about earlier with Ricky Pearsall of like, if there was going to be guys that came out of nowhere, right? Of course, we all know Neighbors. We all know Brian Thomas. We all know Marvin Harrison Jr. But if there's going to be somebody that came out of nowhere, like a Christian Watson, like an Amon-Ra St. Brown, to me, it would be Ricky Pearsall or it would be AD Mitchell. This is somebody who, when you look at the rookie receiver report, I mean, man, he has been so good all year at getting open and commanding targets, and now he's finally actually delivered on running more routes because of the injury, and then also looking good. So AD Mitchell, right, 26% of the routes, 13%, up to 95%. He is second in the class in targets per out run. Over a 1.5 yards per out run is great. 8.2% first downs per out run is great as well for a rookie. He actually led all Colts receivers this past week in first downs, and now he's at 60-plus PFF grade. So he's really trending up, and he already has the skills we covet where he can just be a big boy wide receiver. He can line up against press man and beat him one-on-one. And that is a massive, I don't know if you want to call it superpower, trump card, but this is a very good player. Flacco at quarterback as well, which has really helped all these receivers. So he had 6 catches, 71 yards against a really tough Vikings defense, 20.7% first read share. So that's, 1/5 of the passing plays he's the first read on. So this is all really, really impressive. He ran 37 of 39 routes. If Pittman is sidelined for another week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, there's a chance that they can't keep the door closed on AD Mitchell, and he just becomes a full-time receiver, whether that's at the expense of Pierce or Pittman or whoever. AD Mitchell has been a stud, and he would be somebody that is high on my priority list heading into this next week. But I will say, as the day progresses here, keep an eye out for Pittman's health status, whether any reports come out about practice or anything there. They've been hesitant to put him on IR, but I would be shocked if he missed just one game with that back injury. Now, this is where we're going to move on from our priority as just wide receivers. If you need wide receiver help, we're going to start at the top here with wide receivers that you need short term, right? There's a bunch of buys this week, next week, whatever. If you need a short term start, these guys will be up top, and then we'll end the wide receiver section with stashes here. First, we have Alec Pierce, 4 catches, 81 yards, a touchdown. With Flacco, he's been decent as like a boom-bust flex. He's the wide receiver 33 on the year, so he's actually been pretty good. If you just need like a ceiling game for Pierce, that'll play as well. Same thing, Quentin Johnston here. He's the wide receiver 52 on the year. He has missed a few games here. He has 5 touchdowns in 7 games. The Chargers have been passing more since their bye. Justin Herbert's playing out of his mind. If Quentin Johnston's going to score a touchdown in 80% of his games, it's not sustainable, but second year breakout if you want to buy into it. He's looked good. Ladd McConkey is taking a lot of pressure off of the other receivers right now. So Quinn Johnson is absolutely somebody you can flex. Then you have Elijah Moore as well here. He was on bye, but over the last 2 full games with Jameis Winston, he's had 21 targets. He's like the poor man's Wan'Dale Robinson right now, which isn't great. But again, if you need a flex, he's definitely not awful. Then we have Mike Williams. Now, this is somebody you can't really start right away, but has some long-term upside just because Russell Wilson in this passing offense has been good. And then Mike Williams makes his debut this week after getting traded from the Jets. It wasn't anything crazy, but we don't really know what to expect until like he needs to leap up to 20 plus routes run for us to really get a feel here. This is from PFF's takeaways article they do every single week. Only 7 routes, but he had 1 target and it was like a big touchdown. So we'll see. He could become like a touchdown boom bust dependent kind of like flex moving forward. Let's also talk about Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Now this one, I don't know. I don't know, man. You put the diamond tester up to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I think the jewelry is probably fake here. But he had the Randy Moss stat line. 3 catches, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. Could he be Derek Carr's new Rashid Shaheed? Probably not. But if you are down horrendous, and you just need somebody in your lineup this week, I got to actually pull up Week 11 buys. I don't think the Saints have a buy this week. They don't. So if you're down horrendous, not a priority ad. I am not bidding anything on Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He is somebody you pick up Wednesday morning, but you could do worse. If you're down bad, you could do worse. We're gonna kind of breeze through these guys, dude. Rashad Bateman's the wide receiver 27 right now. Of course, it's overall. It's not points per game, but like Rashad Bateman in best ball right now is kind of crushing. It's a wonder to see as somebody that loved Rashad Bateman coming out of school. He's had 15 plus PPR points at 3 of his last 6. The team doesn't seem crazy about Deontay Johnson. He had just like 7% of the routes last week. Bateman's the wide receiver 2 on the best offense in football right now. If you're in a deep league, like we're talking 14 teams, like 2 flex, and you need a wide receiver badly, I don't think Rashad Bateman's all that terrible. Now, let's go to the rookie stash section of this video. Again, this is the big idea here of rookies get better over time. We'll talk about the Carolina boys, right? Leggett, or Leggett, as he's been getting called recently on the broadcast, and Jalen Coker here. They are on bye this week. So this is like a stash. But if they're on waivers, especially, you won't have to bid on them. They'll sneak through. They've been decent in terms of the rookie receiver report. Actually, Coker's been better, where Coker actually got up to 93% of the routes this past week. He had 8 targets, I think, leading the team there. So he's like a huge target on this team. He passed David Moore after getting like kind of bumped over the week before, which is great for Coker. He just only gave you 3 catches for 41 yards. So the issue is that this offense isn't great. But Coker has some juice to him. And then, of course, Xavier Leggett. His per route numbers aren't as great, but 18.1% targets per route run is really good for a rookie. And he continues to score touchdowns. So both of them, I think, need to be rostered in deeper leagues. Then we'll talk about Devon Vele. This one's really tough. He's like, I don't know, dude. He's like 26 or something crazy. I don't actually know his real birthday. But he just had 4 catches, 39 yards, and a touchdown. He's trending up. You can see on the rookie receiver report, he's right below Jalen Coker, right above Keon Coleman. 39% of the routes, 49%, and then 82%. And then his per route stuff is fine. He's over a 70 plus PFF grade. He's now the wide receiver 2 in this offense. It comes down to if you believe that Bo Nix can support more than just Sutton. Maybe. We'll see. But he's somebody that you can definitely sell yourself on as like late season rookie upside. He's really stress testing the whole idea though, because he's so old at this point. I don't know that he has like some untapped upside, but he's a rookie. He's performing well. In deep leagues you can grab him. And then our last one, this is only in deep leagues as well, but Jermaine Burton. He did not perform this week, but he did have 5 targets. The issue is he only converted those into 1 catch for 11 yards in a game where the Bengals torched the Ravens secondary, or really just Jamar Chase and Tanner Hudson, honestly. But he did set a season-high 53% of the routes. T. Higgins continues to not even be in the, public mind at this point. Like, he's not even really getting on the practice field. So if Jermaine Burton can keep stacking these up and inch towards 70% plus and get the trust of, Joe Burrow and be a little bit more efficient and make some more big plays, there's something there, but you need the stars to truly align there. Now, let's get to our running backs here. That, again, they're not priority ads or anything, but they are guys I'm grabbing. First up, you have Jalen Wright. We saw last night, man. They really like this kid. Since Raheem Mostert's third quarter fumble by John Daigle, this was in week 9, Jalen Wright has had 10 touches to Mostert's 3, and then Devon Achane has had 28. There's a chance that Jalen Wright is like above Mostert right now in this backfield, and if Achane was to go down or Mostert was to go down, Jalen Wright becomes interesting. Then we have, and he's a fun rookie, size, speed guy out of Tennessee. Then we have Blake Corum again. We're going to kind of just like breeze through these guys. These are just like the usual suspects of handcuffs. Yes, I know that every week Corum has like a 5% snap share. It does not matter. He's going to have like an 80% snap share if Kyron was to ever go down. We can talk about Keaton Mitchell as somebody to add as well. This one, you need some stars to align, but just 2% of the snaps. But like, can he find his way into the mix is kind of the question here. Also, of course, worth saying, Derrick Henry is old. Could he, miss a few weeks down the stretch? And like, that's all it takes. If you guys like remember back to like Jerick McKinnon was like a league winner down the stretch his year. I'm trying to think. There's always these guys that pop off for like the last 4 weeks at running back. Keaton Mitchell could be that guy. I'm trying to think through. There's like another one. I think it was James White. If you wanted to slay the monster of Todd Gurley, this is the real ball knowers know this one. And you look, it's week 11. All right, we're getting a little bit off script. But if you wanted to slay the monster of Todd Gurley one year, you needed James White on your team. Keaton Mitchell could be that guy. In terms of slaying the monster of whoever that is this year, it looks like could be Bijan, could be Saquon, can't be Henry in that scenario. Then we have Trey Benson here. He's now had back-to-back weeks of 10-plus PPR points. I will say he played versus my Jets. They killed him so badly that he came out, but he's looked good. The issue is that he's on a bye here, so he would have been in priority if not for being on a bye. So you have to snag him, bench him for a week, and then you're still hoping for you need a James Conner injury for him to be relevant. Then same thing with Ray Davis. These guys are all just like juicy handcuffs that I like. He's looked really good this year, but so has James Cook. Then let's get to Braylon Allen. 2 of the last 3 weeks, Todd Downing just absolutely loved giving Braylon Allen the football. Doesn't really make him startable. You need Breece Hall injury, but if Breece Hall was to go down, Braylon Allen would be, top 15 type of guy. Then let's get to the tight ends here. First up, Mike Gesicki. Somehow, someway, I keep screaming about him every single week, and he is not over 50% rostered on ESPN. Mike Gesicki has seen target shares, this is from JJ Zach Reason, of 22%, 16%, and 16% over his last 3. Without T. Higgins and Eric All in Week 10, he hit a season-high 75% route participation, which is huge. Anything over 70% for a tight end is awesome. And he was somebody that was like performing on bad usage. And then this past week on Thursday, he gave you a dud with really good usage. So as long as T. Higgins is out, Mike Gesicki is a top 10 start every single week. If you want to go a little bit deeper than that, we have Taysom Hill here, rostered in just 35% of ESPN leagues. He continues to kind of climb here, again from JJ Zach Reason. By the way, he does a really good thread after the Sunday games, where he just kind of goes through all the nuggets that he found interesting. Taysom Hill hit a season-high 63% of the routes in Week 10. That's up from 47% last week, his previous season high. So as they lose all these studs, right, Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, and they're signing Marquez Valdes-Scantling off the streets, Taysom Hill continues to get more and more involved. He had like a long touchdown run called back to a hold. He is somebody that's very interesting at tight end as well. And then we'll get into our quarterback streamers here. First up, Justin Herbert. He has been on an absolute tear here since the bye. Look at over his last 3 weeks, he's actually ran the ball more. Justin Herbert, he has 8 career games with 30 or more rushing yards. 2 of them have come in the last 3 weeks. 49 yards in Week 8, 32 yards in Week 10. And I bring this up as much as I can because I absolutely love Justin Herbert and think that he's one of the most slept-on quarterbacks out there. We're still holding strong. By the way, did a Dynasty Rankings update on the Patreon. We're still holding strong that Herbert is a top 18 asset in Dynasty. Herbert, faster than Josh Allen, higher vertical than Josh Allen, better broad than Josh Allen. He is literally bigger, faster, more explosive. It just comes down to whether or not Herbert wants to run. And if Harbaugh and Greg Roman are going to kind of encourage it and we could see more zone read kind of stuff out of him, then it's all up from here. He has been at 20 points per game, a little bit over 20 points per game over his last 3 games. Herbert also plays the Bengals this week, who have kind of lulled teams into shootouts this season. So he is a really, really good start this week. And now I will say, 47.8% rostered, so we went to one more quarterback as well. Give me Russell Wilson, 40% rostered right now. In his 3 games starting for the Steelers, he's at 19.2 points per game, which is like fine, high-end QB2, like fringe QB1 type numbers. He gets a weak Baltimore secondary, as weird as that is to say. So that's going to do it for us today. As always, appreciate you guys watching. Subscribe if you're new. Check out the Fab article over on the Patreon if that's something that sounds interesting to you. If not, just leave a like, subscribe, and I will see y'all. Or I will say, I usually do defenses. I usually use Subverter Down. Shout out to Subverter Down. He's been getting a little bit more stingy on his site. I am a subscriber, but he's now closed off the free version of it to just like 2 defense projections, which more power to the player. I get what he's trying to do there. He's trying to get some more subscriptions on the site, but I'm not going to blow up his spot and like give you guys the paid section of that. So defensive streaming options, you can either pay for it from Subverter down. I also think I'm not going to just use Hayden Wing's stuff, but if you go to Hayden Wing's Twitter and also the Underdog waiver wire show they do, his Sickos defense is something that's great, where it's just like this chart and it's just like the bottom right quadrant. Those are the best defenses. So check out Hayden Winks on Twitter. He's with us over at Underdog. He is great. But I will see you guys in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, oh, oh.